Okay, so this is the roof of the gallery, and because these are models and we want to photograph the work in them, having natural light or even artificial light will be fantastic from the top. And then also, if you remember, some of the side pieces had windows in them as well. And you can take copier paper, or I found some wax paper in my kitchen, parchment paper. If you have vellum, that could work. And you can use that to kind of create a little bit of a filter so that you're not totally seeing what is through that window, but it's filtering the light on it a little bit. I went ahead and framed out these window sections. It's kind of a little crazy, but again, this is the gallery that we're trying to use to kind of fool the viewer. I noticed that when I was looking through the images in my early mock-ups, that when I just had the parchment paper directly on top of this cut piece, it looked very fake and very artificial. And so by giving it these little window wells, you got some wind coming too, by giving it these little window wells, it helped to create a little bit more depth and dimension. So earlier, I had shown you about cutting some strips from your foam board, some little thin strips, and that's what I used for this rooftop. These were 1/2 inch, and these little window wells are 4 inches long by 2 inches wide. So I have 2 strips that are 4 inches, and then 2 pieces that fit inside of there, and I just basically took 2 pieces of this together, and I said, how big are these? When they go together, they're 3/8 of an inch, and I need a 2-inch piece. So I came to the conclusion that I needed 1 and 5/8 inch strip for each of these pieces. Yeah. So they're all hot glued in except for one. So I was just going to kind of quickly show you a couple ways you can approach putting these together. So I had them cut so that they were in enough tension that they would just sort of stay in on their own, but you might not have cut everything that snug. So you can also tape them together as a frame before you put them in, but I wouldn't try to hot glue around this edge here and then stick that in there. It's likely to drip and be goopy. Here's a little tape pointer. We only have 1-inch tape that we're working with. If you need narrower tape to hold something together, you can put it down on a surface that you can cut on, whether that's cardboard, a cutting mat, just anything else that the material can lift off of, and you also won't damage it if you're cutting with your knife. But I just lay it down gently and then cut through it, and then I've made smaller strips that I can work with. So let's say I wanted to tape this shape together, I could go ahead and do that with these smaller strips of tape. Right, like that and like that. And then the same thing right here. I am recording. I've got my assistant that just came out to check on me. So, we'll pause here for a moment, but just know you can tape that frame together so that you can insert it into here. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to finish putting this little window on the inside of the gallery. It doesn't fit so well for me because it was in tension when I just had it taped, so I took it apart, and I'm going to just slide these pieces in here. This is essentially the inside of the ceiling, so the part that's hiding in the gallery, and I want to make sure that that is actually the part that looks good. What happens on the outside doesn't really matter at all. I can have tape on it, I can have pencil markings, all kinds of stuff. But this is what I want to kind of be a little more pristine. So if your pieces feel really good and snug, you can just leave them. But if not, you also could use a little bit of tape to help make sure that they are snug before you glue them in place, and that they're also level with the ceiling. And so I could just tape these together. I'd probably use my this masking tape as opposed to the blue. I did notice that in certain light I can actually see the blue through the foam core. So I've got my hot glue gun plugged in out here, and I'm just going to put a couple little dabs of glue, or just a line of glue. It doesn't quite matter. This is just holding it in place a little bit. And maybe just double checking on the inside that it's flat and that they're level and they haven't shifted too much. Those should cool off in like 10 to 15 seconds. I'll also insert these other pieces. Make sure that they're fitting nice and snug. Glue those into place. While I'm holding this one, I'll take off the tape from the others because that hot glue has set. Do be careful when removing your blue tape from your foam board. I have had it tear some of the layers, and if it does tear, then you'll take a little glue on a scrap of paper and slide it under there and fix that, especially if it's on your interior wall. If it's on the outside, I just tape it shut and I don't worry about it. And then just that last little bit glued into place. I'm going to feed that again. Where was I? Here. Okay. So that does it for the roof of the gallery, and as you can see, this is the inside, and these are two beams that I made out of cardboard. They're hollow and they go across the span, and then this is the top that has all the little window wells, and then eventually, as I said, I'll take some kind of wax paper, vellum, or even printer paper would help just to sort of filter the light a little differently. And if it seems like it's bulging, maybe I would cut this and tape each one as its own little section. But I like to have access. What if I wanted to do a photograph from the top? So I don't want these permanently on here. I want to be able to take them on or off, or if I decide I want to put a gel filter on it or some color filter, you know, I have a little more room for play with the form.